Hey, everybody. It is a great day. It is your host, Ron Nussbaum, here on the Construction Champions podcast. And I am super excited for our guest today. I've gotten to get to know him a little bit here in the past few months. And I'm going to tell you, Mark is going to drop some fire for you today. He's been around the construction industry his entire life. I want to welcome you, Mark. It's great to have you on Construction Champions today.
Yeah, Ron. Hey, it is awesome talking to you again. I love your passion for this space, man. You're changing the game.
100%. And that's why we're here. That's why I have you on here today. So why don't you tell our guests, some about you and what the path is that led us to having this conversation here today.
Yeah, well, basically as a kid, I was a 6-year-old kid. My parents divorced and my dad just started a construction company and that's how I spent summers with dad. And so long story short, man, started at $1 an hour, helping dad every summer, got another $1 an hour every summer I came back. So that was my incentive, and just kept helping him through, all the way through high school and even into college. He's like, he's the one that pushed me to say, hey, you don't want to be doing this the rest of your life. You got to go to college. Um, so his gift to me was co-signing some student loans for me, which I later found out, I guess that's a gift, but not. But the work ethic that I learned, thinking and working for dad, sometimes you would think, you probably had the easier ways, the employees, but we were a tight-knit group, man. Less than 5 people. Most of my time working for him for 15 years. And man, you would grind me to the edges, right? Like at 12 years old, like I was the main finisher. Like he would make sure it is perfect and spot on. But not only that, man, he's efficient. He freaking made me straighten nails and coffee cans and just anything to save $1. I mean, he'd order concrete to the nearest wheelbarrow, like just stuff that you don't think about. But in order to survive in like construction, you have to be efficient. You got to have good systems in place. You have to be really put out a really good product and have customer service. You have to have good communication skills. So, man, I learned that from dad. The problem was though, I hit through college. I took his advice, went to college, went about 3.5 years, and then decided I butt heads with dad. I just couldn't get along with him. I had a W-2 that I went to, met my wife, and just said, I'm not pound sand, dad. He just wasn't growing in the direction I wanted to grow the company because he was kind of getting towards the end of his career, and I had a new vision for it. Well, we butt heads. I went and got a W-2, man, and bought a house and did all the stuff. Didn't even talk to dad for a good year. Lots happened though, and then all of a sudden I got fired from my job. And 2 weeks after I bought the house. So then it's like, all right, reset. What do we got to do? What do we got to do? It's like I didn't know anything else but construction. So I started out with, I think my wife's dad knew an employee way out in the sticks, needed a bunch of work done. No one would do it. So I took it. And man, I think unlike that job, it was a big house remodel and a bunch of concrete. And that's really where I started. And I used his tools. I didn't even have a wheelbarrow. I had a pickup truck to get there. So, that's kind of my story and like how it started. And I suppose, Ron, you can probably attest. I mean, it's always where it started, and how you got to that point. But it escalated quickly after that. After a few years into the game, I picked up 1 or 2 employees. I did know this, and I didn't know much about business. I just thought, you work like dad, you work harder and you get paid more, and you just keep working more hours, you work harder, you get paid more. So just kind of the small mindset mentality. But I was different, right? Like I wanted to be different. Dad was my motivation because he wanted everything for me to fail. Unfortunately to say that, that's just when you start a construction company, I think the failure rate's worse than a restaurant. I believe out of 10 companies, like couple survive after 5 years, and it's only like 10% after that. So I was just ruthless to be better and adapt and use, kind of modern technology. And I think I used Google SketchUp, like just these different things to give my customers, like they wanted to see what they were going to get. And, so then, dad actually worked for me for a couple of years. So it was cool, man. It was really cool. And man, I just kept going. And so as my dad retired, I ended up just picking up a couple employees. I always hired on my weaknesses though. Like that was my one strength I had. I wasn't good at being like super detailed and like doing the Google SketchUps and doing, estimates and numbers. I can do some of that, but it's like I just didn't have patience for some of that.
Mm.
But I had a really good motivating work ethic where I could go out and pour concrete and give people buildings and build homes. And so it just kind of escalated. Added a few people wherever we're a week every year. And now, up to today, we're up to like 35 employees and do about 25 million in revenue. So that's kind of the story in a rope.
No, it gives me goosebumps, man.
Yeah,
That's an
man. So,
amazing story, and it's so amazing when you talk about how life just hits you, and you have to make those decisions. And going back to what you knew growing up, being around
yeah.
construction, being around concrete, and then fighting the adversities of starting out, and then people going against you, people that you love, that you want to be with you, but sometimes that's just what we find ourselves anytime you start to change that status quo or change your mindset around something, you get a lot of pushback. And it's typically the pushback from the ones that you love. That's the strange thing that people have to walk through. And it's amazing to be sitting here listening to you tell your story now and where you're at, because you are a testament to what power there is in construction.
Yeah, man. I just think like, okay, dad was the motivating factor because I don't like to fail. I know you can learn from your failures, but I just persevered. I mean, in construction, I mean, you get pushed down pretty low sometimes, and the word quit in your mind comes up, like it just does. But quitting's just the easy way out in my mind and how I work. So I don't let that happen. I persevere through it. I try to get gratitude and try to pick up motivating, and I try to learn a lot. I used lots of educational pieces. I used a guy right out of the gate, maybe help some new construction guys. I followed a guy named George Headley. He's just a good mentor in the space. He's my coach today still. I mean, 13 years later. So I couldn't afford some of his programs right out of the gate, but he's got plenty of content that's, for $1,000, you could have a book and a bunch of courses and get yourself in the right path really quickly. So guys like that, you got to have mentors along the way. Construction's not a game you want to play by yourself, because you have to be efficient. You have to provide more value than the next guy. And let's face it, it's a cutthroat industry. I mean, that's just where we're at. It's like the next guy will do it cheaper. And I hate that.
It's one industry where you truly do work sun up to sundown and feel like you don't have enough hours in the day to get the extra amount of work done. And you have plenty of competitors knocking on that door all the time. And it really comes down to differentiating yourself from them.
Yeah.
So, Mark, I'm going to ask you the $1,000,000 question. And one of the reasons we're here is,
Let's do
in
it.
your mind, what is a champion in construction? What is a construction champion today? And what does it take to be a champion in 2023 in construction?
Yeah, I think you have to adapt quickly. Like our industry changes. I think, Ron, you have software out for communication. That is like, you have to adapt with these technology pieces. We're my mission statement, we're designing and building modern construction. Shoot, I screwed up, but we're designing and building positive impact through modern construction. But basically what it's saying is that, we adapt quickly. Like that's what I had, a younger mindset than my dad did, right? It wasn't a work hard. You you have to adapt. You have to leverage people's other time, and hire for your weaknesses. So I adapted so quickly where my dad didn't do that. It was just like, you can have the small mindset saying, I'm just going to do everything. And because I'm good at all of this. So you have to flip your mindset and say, no, how do I put systems and processes in place and replace myself as fast as possible? So now, like, learning in my construction career, like, to get a champion and like to get to where I have, like, I had to do that. And now when I'm buying businesses, it's like, I think of the same thing, replace myself as fast as possible, get key people in key areas, and watch yourself grow. Don't be greedy out of the gate. So that's probably what it means to be a champion to me. Use mentors and coaches, so helpful for me along the way. I wouldn't have gotten to where I wasn't if I didn't read like a George Hadley book out of the gate. But then I wouldn't be where I was if I didn't know guys like Grant Cardone. And I wouldn't be where I was with my business if I didn't meet like Gino Wickman, the book Traction. So and now I'm adapting into content. Just like you, Ron. It's like we're producing content for marketing and trying to get leads. So it's like, have to adapt as things move on. Don't get stuck in old ways. It doesn't pay.
I love it. And I love that we're talking about this here today because, I mean, adaptation is when people think construction industry, they think the complete opposite. Like adaptation, construction, no, those two things don't go together. But here you are, successful. You got a $25 million a year company moving into real estate, coach, doing all these amazing things. And that is what got you to where you're at now, is that ability to be able to adapt. And, I come from the Marine Corps, so adapt and overcome, like that's in our blood. So I love that we're jumping right out the gate here and having a conversation about one of the biggest holdups that people talk about around the construction industry. And then having coaches. I firmly believe in that as well. I think there's so many different people out there that, we connected on Grant Cardone, that, we have that in common. But, he's not everybody's cup of tea, but there's plenty of other people, taking the time to go out and research who is that person that speaks to you. Like, I get up, I listen to Andy Frisella, I listen to Grant Cardone. That stuff fires me up, but that doesn't fire everybody up. But finding that person for you, I think, is a must. I really, truly do.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go back to my construction path. When I learned in 2018, my company really took off in 2018. So I was about 8 years in, working harder, trying to make more money, and then kind of found the Grant Cardone and trying to figure out how to keep some money, right? Like, I wasn't generating any worth. But I started narrowing my focus. So like when you're following all these guys, there's so much content out there. Really focus on one or two or three max, don't spread the focus. And relating back to my construction career, we were just the yes man. Like, yes on everything. Yes. When you start out, you have to be the yes man. You do it all. Whether you like it or not, you do it all. But when you really start making the money, like me in 2018, I really started focusing on a smaller area. And that's when I started saying no to things that were outside that. I did concrete, I did general contracting, and I only did commercial general contracting, not residential. So then it just led me, and then then my income freaking skyrocketed because I was so niched. I had good systems in place. My guys understood it. And I think even with mentors, there's so much noise out there, so much content. Just try to find 1, 2, 3 max mentors. And man, it's all I've had in the last 13 years. And it's really caused me to grow fast. So
yeah, that's awesome. I couldn't agree more with just finding those right people that speak your language, that get you fired up every day.
Yeah.
So, Mark, when we talk about adaptation and being able to adapt and grow companies, What do you think's the biggest misconception in construction? Like why is it thought that we can't do that as leaders in the construction industry? But I see guys like you, and I talk with a lot of successful guys that are able to get that job done. What do you think that differentiator is?
So, I'd say a differentiator, you have to get niched in something to really adapt quickly and be the expert in an area. I think, as I relate it to content, you want to niche down and really focus on an industry, kind of like we're doing on this podcast. But a differentiator for me was really niching down into what we were good at. And once I did that, like I said, everything else took off. It's what's interesting to us, right? Like, I like construction. I shouldn't really probably doing concrete and it's like, and then I own a real estate company and property management. But you got to niche down at the beginning and focus, and then you can diversify later. I always tell people when it relates to investing, it's like no one got rich putting $1,000 in an EFT, $1,000 in real estate, and $1,000 into everything else. No, they went all in on one thing. And when you go all in on one thing, good things will happen. And later in life, when you have too much money from that one thing, then diversify. Don't diversify too early. It's just, I'm 34 years old. I did not get rich diversifying. I went all in on construction and real estate.
I love it. It's such a great mentality and a great thought process through that, to where you want to be diversified, but you have to get to a position where you can diversify and build something that allows you to have some of that freedom to go out and be able to invest your skills. We all have things that we're really, really good at, and you can take those other places, but you have to make sure that that core business is right and that it's running effectively. I know you wanted to move into real estate if that concrete business wasn't doing exactly what it was supposed to. If you didn't spend the time getting down into the nitty gritty in that and building it to what it is, it wouldn't allow you to go do other things as well.
No, yeah, man. And like, just something that comes to mind is like people are always waiting to start into business, and like maybe you have employees you've read that are really good. They understand your business, want to start on their own. Well, they always wait for the perfect moment. And I feel like people that wait for perfect moments are the procrastinators. And perfection is procrastination. Just start today. Do 80% of the actions today are 20% of what you're gonna the outcome of what you're gonna have. So just spend your time in action, and don't spend your time in planning the 20%. It's like people are always 80% planning, 20% action. It's like flip-flop that. You need to spend your time in action. Let things iron themselves out as you learn, because you're going to do a lot of learning. And so that's just something that I preach and tell people. Just jump in. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait till the website's live and all the tool trailers ready to go and jump in. I didn't have a tool when I started. So I just went all action. I think there's some merit to that. I probably even spent less in planning and 99-1 probably ratio, but I think a lot of people hurt themselves and do a lot of waiting. Don't wait. The best time to start is yesterday, of course.
Yeah, a lot of preparing without sales, but when it really comes, you need the sales. Like once you get the sales, you can schedule the stuff and then get out there and put your other timelines. But if you're out doing a bunch of stuff and you don't have the sales, it can really start to be a problem.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And another little tip that, I learned here just the last few weeks that really helped me, and I kind of thought about it in my life, but you really need to find your purpose, right? Like what is your purpose on this earth? What's your purpose? If it's in construction, like most of this podcast is about, really figure out where you want to be in 5 years. Like what is the greatest outcome? What is the dream outcome for you? Because your purpose always has to exceed your outcomes in life. So you really want to think about making big goals, and once you have and figure out your purpose, like what do I want to be in 5 years? Well, I want to have 5,000 units. I want to have $100 million construction company. But why? Why do you want that? It's like, well, it's not just money, right? Like, it's like, I just want to help a lot of people now, so my greatest purpose is like, God, it's really not 5,000 units. It's not really 100 million. Now I just want to help other people get there. And like, that gives me so much satisfaction. If this helps two other people on this podcast today, I just think that you really find your purpose. It'll push if it's in construction and you want to help people, you'll have a very successful construction company.
Awesome. I love it. That is great advice. So we're going to start to wrap it up here.
Yep.
And one last question, Mark, is what is your biggest takeaway headed into 2023 for all the construction champions out there? What do you focus on? What do you think is going to be the biggest game changer this year as we head into what a lot of people, it's just uncertain. People don't know what exactly is going to happen. What's your mentality headed into this year, and what's the huge impacts that you're going to create?
Yeah, so our focus in 2023, everyone's like, the recession's here. It's probably the most predictable recession ever, but we do everything we can. We realize that this is a cutthroat industry. You do not want to compete, you want to dominate. And in order to do that, it's not going to be low price. It's not going to be low bid. So what we're doing in the real estate game is focusing more on the real estate development side. We're creating our own work, and we're creating good investments for other investors, limited investors, because our construction, there's less contractors than there was in 2008, right? Like there's just, I think it's 30-40% less than typical before the 2008 crash. So, we are starting to become, probably more needed in the industry because the building needs to be so heavy. So focus on an area where you can create your own work. And create relationships that create the work. Don't focus everything on low bid work and your procedures. Try to focus on your relationships.
I love it. That is amazing advice right there. So Mark, where can everybody find you? If somebody wanted to reach out to you, or where can people connect with you?
Yeah, man. So I'm a disruptor a little bit as a company, and we do I do an email called Unfollow the Herd, and you can find me on LinkedIn, Marc Kuhn, and MARCKUHN, and you can subscribe to my newsletter on there called Unfollow the Herd. And basically how I got to where I am today. And then also follow me on Instagram, YouTube. We have a whole bunch of areas, and you can just search my personal name. MAK, as we got it in the back, that's my initials. So if you can't find me, you're living under a rock.
Awesome.
I got it. I'm trying to get everywhere like you, Ron. I'm trying to keep up.
Absolutely. It's where you need to be, omnipresent. You know? So I'll include all those links in the show notes for anybody that wants to reach out to Mark. I 100% recommend it. He is a fantastic guy doing a lot of great things for not just the construction industry, but the real estate industry and everything in between. So construction champions, I hope you enjoyed today's episode and the fire that was just dropped. Until next time, go out there and be a champion.